So in the 6.6 banners, we have a lot of interesting characters from Nicole, Durin, Mavuika, and also Lohen. 3 of those characters are going to be Pyro. Also 3 of them are going to be Pyro supports kind of. 2 of them are going to be Hexarray, and 2 of them are going to be main DPSs. So as you can see, there's a lot of overlap between their roles, which means it's going to be pretty hard to choose between them. Honestly, it's probably one of the hardest banners to choose from in a while. That's why I'm here today. Hopefully I'll help you avoid the wrong choice for your account and your specific needs. But before we continue that though, are you trying to get any of these characters but you just cannot get enough Primo Gems? I got you. You should head to U7Buy, your ultimate gaming hub for safe, fast, and cheap in-game top-ups. From Genshin Impact to all of your favorite titles. The Genshin Impact's direct top-up page lets you recharge instantly. Check this out for example. The 8,080 Genesis Crystals price on the official store is going to be $99.99, which is so expensive. But on U7Buy, you notice that the storefront displays similar prices to the in-game store. But don't worry, the magic all happens in checkout. Once you click the Buy Now button, your total instantly drops to the actual discounted prices. And it can drop even more if you use my code Camilo. How to buy is also super easy. You just type your user ID, select your server and region, pay securely, and your account is going to be loaded instantly. It's that easy. Check the link in the description or the pinned comment to visit U7Buy, and remember to use my code Camilo for an extra 8% discount. Alright, so starting off with Nicole, we're going to quickly explain what does every character do, their pros and cons, and then finally we're going to do a final conclusion of which characters you should get. So Nicole is just going to be a Pyro support slash buffer and also sub DPS sort of, and she's also a Hexarray character. If we're talking about Nicole's pros or what does she give you, she's going to give you a massive team-wide attack buffs. Her attack buffs are going to be better than Bennett's, just slightly better, but the main thing is that the attack buffs are going to be team-wide, not only for the character on field, which makes it much better for teams that have like stronger sub DPSs, since her sub DPSs are also going to benefit a lot from the attack buffs. So this is mostly where she shines. It's teams that have like split damage with multiple sub DPSs, she can buff them all at once. She's also going to have a super good shield. Obviously it depends on how much attack you have on her and stuff like that, but her shield is definitely going to be a top tier shield in general. It's going to be comparable, maybe just slightly worse than Zhongli's, but that's saying a lot. Zhongli's shield is going to be the best shield in the game, and honestly Nicole's shield is going to be around the same. I'd say it's like the same tier. Maybe it's a little weaker in terms of like numbers. Again, depends on how much attack you actually have on her. But in the best case scenarios, it's going to be similar to Zhongli's shield, which is saying a lot. So it's definitely going to be one of the best shields in the game you can have. The third pro about Nicole is that she's going to be super easy to build. You really just need to build attack on Nicole. Like literally, just stack as much attack as you can and you're good. Her shield and attack buffs and everything are going to scale with attack, and even her damage is going to scale with the character on field. So you don't need to build any crit on her, no crit rate, no crit damage, no elemental mastery, nothing like that. You just need to stack as much attack as possible and you're good, which makes farming her artifacts much easier. Maybe you can get some energy recharge, but yeah, it's still pretty easy to build for sure. The fourth to last pro about Nicole is that she's going to be pretty universal. Basically any character who needs attack can take full use of Nicole. Same thing as Bennett, for example, that we had before. We all know how versatile and universal Bennett is, and Nicole is basically just going to be the same thing and even better. She might be slightly less compatible with non-Hexarray characters because you'll need a 3-second delay before you can apply the buffs, but in general she still works pretty fine, and in my opinion she's better than Bennett. She's easier to play, you don't need to stay in the circle. Her attack buff is going to be team-wide, so if you have sub DPSs they can also benefit from that, and so on. So yeah, she's a super universal character. As long as any characters need attack, Nicole is going to be a super good fit in your team, and she can also give you a shield and everything. So yeah, also the damage she provides is going to be the element of the character on field, so it's never going to mess up with your reactions. She's not going to be applying Pyro for example and then it's going to mess your actual reactions. No, she's going to be applying the same character on field's elements. Now moving on to Nicole's cons, honestly I don't think she has many. The first one is that she's less compatible with non-Hexarray characters, as I said before, which is fine. She's still pretty compatible with them, honestly. She's just less compatible. Your buff is just going to take a bit longer to activate, but it's not too severe. You can definitely just make it work. So yeah, she definitely fits better with Hexarray characters, but in general you can still use her as just like a normal attack buffer with anyone. The second thing is that she has no real Pyro application, which I also talked about before. She applies the same element as the character on field, which can be good because it's not going to mess with your reactions if you don't need Pyro. But if you need a Pyro applier, then she also won't be able to do that. So you'll need a second Pyro sub DPS, for example, if you need to activate like Melt, for example, or something like that. In that case, she's not going to do the job, and you'll either either replace her with a completely different Pyro sub DPS and Pyro applicator and applier, or you can play her but you'll need a second slot for another Pyro, which is not ideal, but you know, it's a pro in some teams and then also a con in some teams. So honestly, in my opinion, she doesn't really have any like huge cons. She's just a pretty good S tier character in general, in my opinion. Alright, now moving on to Durin, that's going to be his first rerun. Durin is just going to be a Pyro sub DPS slash support, also the same thing as Nicole basically. For his bros, he's just going to give great buffs to the team. He can give you the Pyro resistance shred or vaporize and melt buffs. So in vaporize or melt teams, he's just going to increase the vaporize and melt damage, which is pretty good. And in other teams, he's just going to give you resistance shred to Pyro and also the elements that had the reaction with Pyro. The second part about Durin is that it's going to have super good off-field damage, probably the best honestly in general, or around the best at least, just as good as you can get as like a sub DPS. So yeah, you cannot complain about that. And that's pretty much it really for Durin. He's just a great buffer and also sub DPS. His damage is going to be comparable to literally some like bad main DPSs. So yeah, it's going to fit pretty well in teams like that. For his cons, it's also not really many cons. It's more like just things that he's not made for, but he's going to be less good outside of Hex right characters. His resistance shred is going to be less and his buffs are just going to be less to vaporize and melt. That's pretty much it. He's just less compatible, but he's still definitely usable. He can still deal decent amounts of damage and also give you 20% resistance shred, which is pretty good. So yeah, it's definitely not bad. It's just less good outside of Hex right teams, which is fine. The second con about him is that he has no cryo or hydro resistance shred. For those, he's just going to give you extra vaporize and melt damage, but he doesn't actually have like resistance shred to hydro or cryo. So in melt teams, for example, or vaporize teams, you're not going to benefit from the resistance shred, which is also fine in my opinion. He would have been just too OP if he had that. It's just not his field. If you need it, you can probably just get it from the Viridescent, for example, or other characters, but Durin is not going to be the character for that. But yeah, overall, he's also an S tier character, S tier support and sub DPS, and probably is going to be for a while. Now, moving on to the OG good character, which is going to be Mavuika, the Pyro Archon. Mavuika is a very flexible character. She can be used as a main DPS. This is like her main role, but you can also use her as a support slash Pyro applier, and she can do pretty well as that too. So she's definitely going to be pretty versatile, but also pretty good. Moving on to her pros, the first and obvious pro about Mavuika is that she's going to be a top tier DPS. Mavuika is literally top 2 DPSs right now. I think she's the second best after Zibai, and she was the best DPS not long ago, before Linnea got released. So in general, her teams are going to be top tier for sure, and she's going to outperform most characters in this game. So if you actually need a good main DPS, Mavuika is definitely going to be a decent option. Now, she might be power crept at some point, probably, but I don't think she's going to be like completely out of the meta, since as I said, she is literally the second best main DPS right now. So it's going to be crazy if she's like completely out of the meta in a few months. So I think she's going to be good for a while, and she's definitely a top tier main DPS right now. The second good thing about her is that she's a top tier sub DPS and enabler and also support. She can deal decent off-field damage, apply pyro in a very good rate for some teams that don't need like super fast pyro, especially like vaporize teams, for example, and stuff like that. And she can even support you using the Natlan set, which is also super good. So yeah, Mavuika is still pretty good. I think the main reason you should get her is probably just going to be her being a main DPS and her dealing top tier damage, but she can also provide a lot of good versatile things. If we're talking about her cons, the first one is that she's going to be more clunky without a second Night Soul character. Her burst is going to rely on just the Night Soul points, and she's just going to be easier to play with a second Night Soul. So if you're using Mavuika, you definitely need a second Night Soul character on your team, whether it's the main DPS or another support or sub DPS, it doesn't matter, but you definitely need a second Night Soul character for you to play her more smoothly. The second con about Mavuika, in my opinion, is that her combos for maximum damage main DPS are going to be a bit complicated. If you're just playing her normally or in easy combos like the donut, for example, or just whatever, her damage is not going to be maximized. If you want to maximize her damage, you need to learn her combos, which can be hard for some players if you're like on mobile, for example, or if you have high ping, or just, I don't know, maybe you just don't like learning complicated combos. Either way, if you just want to actually get her maximum damage, it's not going to be like an easy plug and play, which is a con about Mavuika in my opinion, but it's not too bad. She's also still an S tier character. Now, moving on to Lohen, which is going to be our new cryo main DPS. And as a main DPS, he doesn't really have much going on, honestly. So for his pros, his damage is going to be just like A tier damage. That's all I'm going to say. It's not going to be a top tier DPS, honestly, even compared to the current like characters. But his damage is not going to be bad. It's definitely like higher than average. He can rival some characters like, I don't know, like Farka, for example, or like older main DPS units. But compared to like the new Nod Cry units, for example, or like the current top main DPSs, his he's definitely not going to be at the same level. I wouldn't say he's an S tier main DPS. I'd say he's like an A tier main DPS for sure though. Probably the second best cryo main DPS after Skirk, but he's going to be an upgrade over characters like Ayaka, for example, or Risley or whatever. So yeah, it's definitely going to be decent, but not a top tier main DPS. The second part about him, I guess, is going to be that he's going to have an open ceiling sort of. His damage is going to scale with his sub DPSs, so the stronger sub DPSs you have, the stronger damage he's going to deal. So that just means, for example, if you have super good sub DPSs in the future, you can probably pair them with him and his damage is going to increase a little bit. So his ceiling is not closed. I still think he might still get a little better in the future, but that's not guaranteed. So just keep that in mind. I'm just saying his ceiling is probably not like maximized at this point in the game right now, but in general, he's not going to be top tier, but he's also not bad as a main DPS. If we're talking about his cons, the first con is that, as I said, he's going to be team dependent. So if you don't have strong sub DPSs for him, his damage is going to tank. You cannot use him as like a hyper carrier or anything like that. You'll need stronger sub DPSs with him. So that's definitely a con about him. The second and probably most important con about him, in my opinion, is that he's going to be potentially free. It's probably going to be a character added to the standard banner, and those are usually free on like anniversaries, so you can probably just grab him for free in a few months. His C1 is nothing really special too. It's just like a 10 to 15% damage increase maybe, I think, from the very fast calculations I did. So yeah, if you really want him, I don't think it's a good idea to just wish for him right now. You can probably just grab him for free in a few months and you're good. So that's the biggest reason of why you shouldn't get him probably right now. Maybe, again, it's not confirmed yet, so don't hold me up on that, but he's probably going to be free at some point. Alright, now moving on to the final conclusion, which character should you get and when? As I said before, there's a lot of overlap between those characters, so let me try to simplify it as much as I can. So if you need a main DPS, if you still need a main DPS right now, just get Mavuika. As I said before, she's still a top tier character. Her damage is still going to be incredible if you're willing to just like maximize her rotations and combos and stuff like that. And she's probably not going to be power crept in a bad way anytime soon, honestly. Even if she is like power crept, you're probably still going to be able to clear with her pretty easily, so it's fine. Plus also, even if she is power crept, you can always just turn her into like a support or something like that, and she can be usable in different teams. So yeah, I definitely think Mavuika is a good investment for any account if you don't have her. Unless you just don't like her or something like that, then sure. But in general, she's always a good investment. I mean, she's also an Archon, and those usually just don't age too bad with time. So yeah, I think Mavuika is a good main DPS right now. Worst case scenario, you can just turn her into a support maybe in the future. So I definitely think Mavuika is a decent investment for your account. Obviously, just make sure you have some of her decent teammates, like at least a Night Soul character or something like that, if you're trying to use her as like a main DPS. But yeah, for a main DPS option, I definitely would recommend her. If you need an overall general, versatile, good support, the option is going to be either between Nicole and Durin. Both of them are going to be pretty good supports. Nicole can give you huge amounts of attack to your whole team and a shield, and also extra damage. Durin can give you super good damage and resistance shred, which is always pretty good. They're also both hex ray, so they're going to be super comparable. Now between them, which one should you choose? I say generally, if you don't have any of them, I'll probably just go with Durin, because I'd say Nicole is going to be easily replaceable with Bennett, honestly. Bennett can probably give a close amount of attack as a buff to your active party member. Now the biggest difference is that Nicole is going to give that to your whole team, so if you have super good sub DPS, they can also benefit from that, as I said before. But the thing is, if you don't have Durin, he's going to be one of the most characters who can take advantage out of Nicole. So if you don't have him in the first place, Nicole's value is going to drop significantly in that like specific point, because there are not many super good sub DPSs that can actually like take full advantage out of Nicole's attack buff. It's usually Durin that we're talking about when we say that. So if you don't have him anyways and you want to choose, I think Durin is probably a safer pick if you don't have both of them. Also, it's Durin's second rerun, so Nicole is probably going to rerun sooner than Durin. So yeah, if you just need a general good support for your account, I think Durin is probably the right pick if you don't have both of them. If you already have Durin, then just get Nicole. And that's just my opinion, honestly. Even if you get Nicole, even if you don't have Durin, it's still going to be fine. She's still a great support. So if you really like Nicole personally, then she's also not like a wrong choice. But for a pure like objective choice, I'll probably just go with Durin. For a character like Varka, for example, or something like that, getting Durin is probably going to be a higher priority in my opinion. And for Lohen, as I said before, unfortunately, I think it's just a skip. You can probably just get him for free at some point. If not, it doesn't even matter anyways. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.